A lot of prophets have been prophesying about this year of the woman. And, my audience tends to like if we just go straight in, no roundabouts, but you have something so powerful to share that I think, and everybody needs to get a hold of. You have about 10 different models, prophetic models that the Lord's given you.
Yeah.
5 of them are the models that seem to be, if I know better terms, what the enemy's raising in women.
Yes.
And 5 of them are the 5 prophetic types of what God is raising in a woman. And when you said it to me, I mean, my spirit just leapt. Like, this is the word. This is God's word speaking right now. And so, first of all, what is this year of the woman about?
Yeah.
And then we'll go into the 5 and 5 different types.
Great, thank you. So one of the first things I want to say is part of the things that God began to speak to me about this year is clarifying with, just people across the world, the difference between being female and being woman. Because I found out that many times people get driven by femininity, but being female is a gender, but a woman is an office in the realm of the spirit.
Whoa. Coming on too strong. I mean,
You said we should just get right in.
Oh my God, what did you just say? Slow down.
Okay.
What just happened? So you said, oh God. Woo! There's a difference between being a female and being a woman.
Yes.
Okay, just say that one more time.
Yes, because you see that many of the wars that the enemy is fighting, he's fighting around femininity. And femininity is where emotions and feelings and all of these things dwell. And, what the enemy is actually dwelling on, sexualizing the woman. It's all about the female gender and the body. But you can get the body of a woman, but you cannot have the office of a woman.
Jesus,
because the office is given and designated by God.
Wow. So, I don't mean to go down this rabbit hole. I'm trying to avoid the rabbit hole. There's so many issues going on in America of men really identifying as what you're saying is females.
Yeah.
But not necessarily a woman.
Yeah.
Because a woman is an office that God designates.
Exactly.
It's not the same as a female.
Yeah. So what the enemy does is that he reduces the woman to just have femininity. And so it becomes everything you feel, everything you want, it's all about a feminine expression. And so I found out that many people are educated greatly in femininity, and sometimes even churches, in our attempt to help marriages get better, we educate people on being female, on their gender. They're like, put this on for your husband, make sure you look like this, make sure you sound like this. But you can be very feminine and actually very illiterate about the office of a woman. And so you have no impact in the life of your husband.
Which mountain are you on? Okay, where do you go to pray? I need to know, because
Apostle,
Mount Hermon, Mount Everest, how are you need to go to these realms? Okay, God, so many questions. We got to move into this. Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
This is not a pre-interview. I haven't asked you this question before, but there's this program that had controversy. It was by Matt Walsh. He was running around the country, all across America, asking this one question: what is a woman? Mm-hmm. He asked it of the activist, transgender person who just changed her gender into a woman. He asked it of the doctors who were performing the surgery at, I think, John Hopkins College, medical, whatever. He asked every single one of them. He ambushed them. His ambush journalism was wicked, but it was powerful. Okay, so what is a woman? He asked them, and nobody could give a definitive answer to what is a woman. What is a woman?
I believe you cannot define a woman just based on, one standard, maybe the physical or the spiritual. Both of them come together. So the Bible says he made them in his image and in his likeness. So if we're going to define the woman, in fact, many of the wars are around the image, so she has a body, she has a womb, she has a that. All of that is true. because the image and the likeness needs to be complete. So in the image, a woman, yes, is a female vessel that carries a spiritual office that is a product of a nature of God that has been given to her. And so God said it is not good for man to be alone. And when you look at the word good, is the Hebrew word tov. And the word tov is actually the inherent ability that a thing possesses to be able to replicate the will of God in future generations without the intervention of God. So God said it is impossible for man to replicate his will in future generations if he does not have a woman. You then realize that good for God was not just, oh, this is nice. Good is the measurement of God's will and the ability of that will to continue to reproduce itself in the future. Now, he said it is not possible for that to happen unless there's a woman. And so God creates this being that has the capacity to not only dwell with the man in the bodily form for companionship and satisfaction, but has the capacity to consistently measure the seasons and the journeys of man to ensure that it can replicate God's will in the future. Mm-hmm. So a woman is a spiritual being that journeys with the man, following God's government that he has given to the man as a blueprint, ensuring that there's a replication of God's goodwill in the future. And she does that in the spirit and in the physical by producing children, but in the spirit by producing God's will, working alongside the man.
So interesting. And, you know, when God said it's not good, one might also argue that it was equally as bad when the woman came in, because all this chaos happened, all this bad happened. Something God said it's not good for him to be alone for. So when you think about how much bad happened when Satan hacked that reproductive system to replicate sin around the world, imagine what good would have happened if Adam had hacked that system by God's order and replicated life.
Exactly.
So it just goes to show the pivot that woman really has in changing the outcomes of the world, really. So let's go right into these blueprints. You were telling me about these models, right? But before we do, we're in an Esther season, as many prophets are saying. What is an Esther season?
First and foremost, I think that the Esther movement is all about awakening. And I always tell people the spirit realm is easy to access. It just depends on the door that you take. And I found out that many times people are hungry for the spiritual, but not necessarily the Spirit of God. And so in all of these movements, so you find out that many people are going to all kinds of things and they're listening to all kinds of doctrines that are opening doors to rebellion and stuff like that. Right. But the true Esther movement is being awakened to God's original purpose and commission that he gave to the woman. And you realize that there is no woman without the man. And it's that simple. And so to be awakened as an Esther doesn't mean you are awakened to some sort of power that you now have over the man. That is not an Esther movement. That's a Jezebel movement. Whoa. And that's...
Take your time. Tell us how you really feel. Keep going. Don't hold back.
Yes, and it's very easy, very, very easy to fall for either, because the thing is, people usually get awakened at the moments of their greatest pain, and pain opens the door, but pain usually wants to journey with you past the door. And it now wants to begin to redefine what you encounter in the room. So it's supposed to open the door to a place where you're praying and you're like, God, there must be more to my life. But then when God begins to show you the more, if you're not careful, the pain can corrupt what it is. Okay. So I myself came into a place of awakening.
I've never heard it like that before. Pain is supposed to get you to a door, but it's not supposed to get you through a door.
No.
Because it can skew your interpretation of what's on the other side of that door.
Absolutely.
If you allow the pain that got you to it to get you through it.
Exactly.
A lot of people let pain teach them the wrong lessons.
Absolutely.
They especially women, they interpret life through the lens of their pain instead of allowing pain, maybe like Naomi, to get her out of Moab.
Exactly.
Not necessarily into Bethlehem.
Yeah. And not to redefine every person she meets when she gets to Bethlehem by the lens of what she experienced in Moab. And so because many women have gone through pain and even in marriages and stuff like that, and so when the awakening comes and there's this surge of strength from God, if you are not careful, you begin to think that that strength is God's way of avenging whatever your spouse has done to you in the past.
I get it.
And that's not the truth. The strength is supposed to be a strength of revelation that enables you to now wage the necessary warfare, knowing that your husband is not your enemy. Satan is the enemy.
Yeah.
You know, so the Esther movement is Esther getting to a place where you recognize that the testimony of being the king's wife is not that you are now the queen, but that you are a deliverer to save the people. So it's an awakening that happens, not because, you know, you're celebrated, but because you are able to keep aside the glory of your newfound fame and actually enter into the place of spiritual enlightenment where you say, God, what is your will in the midst of all of this?
Really, the Esther's really positioning to let that Genesis reproductive
absolutely
perpetuate the grace of the image of God.
Absolutely.
Replicate that in the earth.
Absolutely.
It's not that you get lost in the fame of being the Esther. Like Mordecai said, don't forget who you are, girl. You didn't come here to be pretty and be a trophy wife and a slave queen or a boss babe.
Yep.
Or to blow. You came here to actually
save people,
to replicate the Genesis image of God mandate. Don't ever get lost in your position that you are. I like to think of the Esther movement, the real Esther movement, as a counter to the Vashti movement. The Vashti movement was started not by a position, again, a woman in a position who refused to honor her husband's request. And a movement was started that a wise man recognized. This is a movement. It's called the Vashti movement. We don't talk about it. But so will women despise their husbands everywhere. That's called a movement.
Yeah.
So it turns out you don't need to preach to start a movement. You just need to be
take a position.
To take a position on something that's against God's will.
Absolutely.
And now what I'm concerned about is we're seeing these Esther movements being hijacked by Vashti movements because the position becomes more important than replicating the divine DNA of God. And it's like, who needs Xerxes, right? Maybe I am Xerxes too. So it's not about restoring the order, it's about replacing the order.
And I think that that's one of Satan's greatest weapons against the church. Because I found out that many Christians have a knowledge of what God has done, but they don't really have a knowledge of what it took for God to do it. And I think so people can tell the story of, Esther, the queen, Deborah, the one that, you know, led the people to go to war, or this. We talk about all of those things, but actually going deeper into the story to realize that the reason why Deborah qualified was because she was married to Lapidoth. And Lapidoth comes from the Hebrew word lapid, which is the lamp and the light of God. You know, so you talk about Esther being the queen, but you don't remember that Esther actually had a journey of mentorship with Mordecai, and she actually never let him go, and he still had a say in her life. Now, these are the intricate details that sustain the glory of the office.